Welcome to the IVM Podcast Network. Hi, this is Amit Doshi, and I wanted to thank each and every one of our listeners. It's been 2 years since I founded IVM, and it's been an amazing 2 years. We wanted to learn a little bit more about who is listening to our shows, and so we put together a short survey. The survey is anonymous, and we aren't going to be collecting any personal information. I would really appreciate it if you could take a couple of minutes out of your day and go to ivmpodcast.com/survey and fill it out. Thanks, and please keep listening.
You're listening to TFG Badminton.
Hello everyone, here we are. Wow, it's been a long journey for us at TFG, and this is our first episode of our badminton podcast. And for all the followers of TFG Badminton, yesterday we did put out a small teaser on Twitter saying that who we have as a first guest, and we will definitely bring in a lot of other personalities who've been there, done that in scenario of badminton. But what a way to kickstart. I mean, I am just excited as much as I'm nervous right now. But we have in the studio Aparna Popat. Hey Aparna.
Hello.
Hello. They say we don't need introduction for people like you know, but I think I will take some more time because, as I said, I love talking. So I'll take some more time. 9-time former senior national champion between the years 97 and 2006. And I think the last match that you played, it was you defeated Saina Nehwal, and that's when she was 15 years old. Do you think she would be this far when you played her at that age?
Well, I think when I played her in my last national finals, you're obviously touting her to be a great promise. But what's to be noted that she was already playing at that caliber, because I played her at the senior nationals earlier on in the year, and towards the end of the year, she won her first international title at Philippines. So
Right.
I think she was already playing top-notch international badminton by then. And since then, she's just gone on to reach some great heights that, none of us could ever imagine.
So are you a proud senior?
Definitely. I mean, I'm honestly very, very proud to be part of the badminton fraternity today, because I think badminton in India has just exploded, and it's very exciting times for the game.
Well, that was about national titles that she has, and that also equals Prakash Padukone's record of winning 9 consecutive national single titles. That's a massive record, right? To equals a legend like Prakash, sir.
Yes, I mean, Prakash uncle was one of my coaches, trained under him for about 6 years in Bangalore. But I think it's just that each national championship was very, very important back then, because the unwritten rule was that unless you were national champion, you wouldn't get to play the entire international circuit, for the rest of the year. And that would be a huge loss. So there was immense pressure year on year to keep winning the national title just so that I could go out and play international badminton. And I think in a way very proud of myself that I could handle the pressure and keep up the performance so consistently.
Yeah. If there's a drive, I mean, and that's what this leads to, then man, I can imagine what the drive was. Well, that's not it, folks. She's also a 2-time Olympic. Twice at the Olympic Games, one in Sydney and the other one was in Athens. How was that like? 2 times back then you were the only one who had appeared in Olympics for twice in a row. So
I think back then qualifying for the Olympics was very difficult, primarily because we could play only about 8 tournaments in a year that was sponsored by the government, and you really couldn't choose these tournaments picking on your form or which tournament suited your style of play and so on and so forth. So it was difficult keeping this in mind to actually make the ranking cut to qualify for the Olympics. And just as a comparison, the players today play about 20 to 22 tournaments a year. So I think it's a huge difference in terms of exposure and honestly just the chances that you get to actually perform well. So again, the Olympics is a completely different ball game. You get there, I mean, as much as you can try and put down in words, it'll never be enough. But representing your country at the highest stage is a huge high. And I'm just so happy that I could do it 2 times over.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, also she's also had 4 medals at 3 Commonwealth Games appearance, and now we have one soon approaching next year. In 2005, you were also an Arjuna awardee, and then came the year 2006, where you had to probably bid goodbye to the sport. How difficult was that?
I think I'm very blessed to have a good career. I played about 18 years of solid professional badminton, and out of the 18 years that I played, 17 odd depending, I won 16 national titles. So very happy, very blessed. Did not have any injuries right till the very end when my wrist actually gave way.
Yeah.
And that's when I retired from the sport. So I've retired with some very good memories. And I love the sport of badminton, and that passion still remains till today. So I think I'm just happy to be part of the badminton fraternity, and it's given me a lot, and I'm ever grateful for that.
Yeah, so we are happy to have you on our show, and as I said, kickstarting badminton podcast with someone like you, it's an icing on the cake for us. Now, well, that was a small introduction. I hope I covered everything. Did I miss out on anything?
Not that I remember. No.
Okay, I think that's a plus point on my side. Well, let's move ahead to our actual discussion for today. Now, we all know Aparna has been a champion. She knows the sport. She's been there, done that, all of that. So we're dividing the show into 2 parts. One probably just to highlight the positives, how the rate of badminton in the last decade in India, and second of all, of course, we touch upon whatever is happening currently. All the players, some of the players, some shining stars, some upcoming shuttlers, and probably just look upon to end. We shall end on a note on probably touch upon All England. Let's begin. So when I met you for our meet, like to decide, and you pointed out this folks is Aparna's point, okay, that we're going to dwell on. And if you need, some positive guidelines, here is a woman who is ready to give you all the positive side out of the thousands of negatives that we media want to showcase, So, rate of badminton in the last decade in India. How, if I had to ask you to sum up, probably have, a summary of that, what would you say?
Well, I think the decade is actually very accurate, because as we mentioned earlier in the show, 2006 is when Saina got her first international title,
right,
and she really burst on the international scene with that Philippines Open title. And since then, I think, we all credit this huge boom of badminton to Saina Nehwal, and I think that is extremely accurate, because she was the one who actually came, and she was the huge star that any sport actually dreams of.
Yeah.
She came on, she was young, she was fiery, her attitude, her work ethic. I mean, you can go on and on with, praising the young girl. But what she really did was hold fort so tightly that people began to notice the sport of badminton. And then from then on, what started happening is that it, like a trickle effect, there were other players who trained with her who also found that self-belief in them and said that we do pretty much the same training that she does. And I think we have a good shot at doing well internationally also. So that's when actually the competition within India and from a lot of the other Indians found that belief and started performing very well.
Right.
So from 2006 to say about 2009-10, it was pretty much only Saina. And then the 2010 Commonwealth Games, where we got those 2 big gold medals. Of course, Saina got her gold medal, and big medal, I think, for me, was Jwala Ashwini winning the gold at Delhi. Again, singles is known to be India's forte. These 2 girls came in, broke that myth, got us a doubles gold, which has never happened, was the first ever doubles gold medal. So again, we not only stuck to singles, but our talent was branching out, our performance was branching out into the other categories as well. And slowly we started finding the belief that by 2012 we wanted to feature India in all the 5 categories at the Olympics. 2012 we missed out on the men's doubles, but we got representation in 4 categories through a legit qualification procedure, not through a wild card or anything. So I think that again was very, very big. And Saina's Olympic medal that came in 2012 was huge, because a lot of people might not understand Super Series. They might not understand an All England or, Thomas Cup or whatever it takes. So, but when you say Olympics, that's when, everybody's ears literally stand up and it resounds. So I think that happened. And of course, the big performances after that, where we really want a sport, to have the big performances, like just drawing a parallel with tennis, you want Grand Slam victories, right? We got that through Sindhu in 2013, 2014, when she won the 2 bronze at the World Championships. So again, that we got the World Championship medals. And of course, 2011 when Jwala Ashwini again got their bronze at the World Championships. So we got performances very consistently at the top events. Again, 2012 Olympics, 2011 World Championships, 2012 Olympics, 2013 World Championships, 2014 World Championships, 2015 again Saina got us a silver at the World Championships. So if you look at that performance from 2011 to 2016, at every World Championship India has medalled. And I think that is very, very big in terms of consistency of performance. It might not be one player. That is something we wished for. We wanted more Indians to be out there, which is something, we got through these splendid performances by all these girls. In the meantime, the men's also were doing very well. Kashyap got the gold at the 2014 Commonwealth Games. Shrikant reached a high of world number 3. I think Jwala and Diju got to world number 6 in mixed doubles. So we've had these big performances over a period of time. So I remember in 2012 people coming and telling me, oh, this is the golden era of badminton. And in 2017 people are still saying that this is the golden era of badminton. So it's been 4 years now, and we still feel that we're there. And I think that says a lot in terms of our performances of the entire team. And also very pertinent to note that as a team, as Team India as we call it, we've had huge successes. Our team ranking, world ranking, we've come into the top 10, which is big, because we're competing against the big badminton nations, China, Indonesia, Japan, Korea, say Malaysia, whatever, and we've come into that bracket. We've got medals at the Women's Asian Game Team Championships, twice in the Uber Cup. Thomas Cup men's have qualified for the finals. So I think as a team as well, we're working really well, primarily because of this overall performance development across 5 categories. Having said that, there's still room for improvement. There's no question. But if you ask me, we are at a damn good stage in world badminton. And I think along with Japan and Thailand, I think India is one of the fastest improving badminton nations across the world and has the maximum of junior talent. So we are hoping that come the next couple of years, 3 years, it will be an Indian sort of team. Like you say, the Chinese army, there will be a sort of Indian army that will be going forth, didn't actually bring laurels back for the country.
I think that's what will take us to a next point. Yes, these are the ones who get us everything that we want, that the sport needs, and then the people start talking about it, and then they are a topic of discussion, and that's how you know, okay, there's a sport called badminton and there are players and we're getting results. And I think that's one reason why cricket is hailed so much, because we've been getting results since day one. So in terms of badminton, coming back, as I said, the second point that we talk about is the people that work behind the scenes. We always tend to miss out on them. Yes, because the reason why we need to touch upon them, like rightly as you said, is they are the ones who are the driving force. Just like you mentioned, the drive that pushed you to getting those national titles. Prakasa going ahead and saying, hey, you need to do that, because unless that, you won't be able to participate in the international outings. So people like Prakash Padukone, people like Gopi Chand, or they are, and how big a factor do these people play? Because they are legends. They have an option to not be with the sport anymore. They've earned all the laurels that they need to, and they deserve rightly so. They can enjoy happily ever after their retirement life, but they're still here, connected to the sport, having the academies. One of them, the national coach, trying his best to get people like, and he is the biggest factor behind a Saina or behind a Sindhu. So what do you have to say about these legends who still associated, just like you are, but they go way back in history, right?
Yeah, I think these are people who we've actually looked up to. When I was playing and I trained under Prakash Padukone, and of course Gopi was a compatriot and a colleague. But I have great respect for him purely because they are champions. They're great role models to have. And I think they came into the sport sort of selflessly, because at that point the sport of badminton wasn't this big. They had nothing really to gain. The reason they came in was purely because of the passion of the game. And I also, as one, believe that the next generation needs to stand on our shoulders and look higher. And if we are not there, then they start where we started, which is never good enough. You need to just get better and go from strength to strength. So I think the contribution of Prakash Uncle when he came up with the Prakash Padukone Badminton Academy, I think it was in 94, because it's first of its kind in India, where almost all the top players of the country actually went and trained there. And it was a residential academy, and we got top class training with more of an international sort of exposure and a bent. So we were doing more physical training. There would be more. When we practice, it was always look beyond our boundaries. That's where the competition lies, and that's where we need to get to. And then, of course, once Gopi quit international badminton and he retired, he started coaching himself, and we all know what he's done. And now he's put up this fabulous academy in Hyderabad, which is actually multiplied into 2 now, because he's got 2 centers within Hyderabad. And the talent that's coming out from there is just incredible. So I think a huge shout out to both of them, because their commitment and their discipline till today is pretty amazing. And they've really got the sport to where it is today, because as we were talking about the performances earlier, you don't get a world number 1 in Saina Nehwal out of nowhere. You don't get an Olympic silver medalist in Sindhu out of nowhere. There's a lot of background work that's gone into it. And today I do a bit of coaching myself, so I know it's much easier being a player than being a coach. Because I think the responsibility the coach has is much larger and much more selfless than a player does. So I'm just very, very happy that we've got our ex-players back into the fray, and top-notch ex-players back in the fray, and the results are there for all to see.
Yeah, exactly. I think that gets us back to push us ahead, saying there are some more people behind them, backing these people so that these individuals can drive the sport ahead and probably inspire many to pick up the racket. But it wouldn't have easy for a Gopi Chand or for a Prakash Padukone or various other people like you, or Arvind Bhatt for that matter, who's gone ahead and still stuck to the sport, if there was no probably backing or support from the government or from the Badminton Association of India. We've always seen every system has flaws in it. There's nothing that's flawless. Okay, so what would you like to tell the people who out there always have a finger pointed at the system that says, hey, is the system doing something? Is the system doing this, doing that? And where are they when they need it? Because there were a lot of outrage during the top scheme that happened. Few players, selective method of all of those giving, but still at the end of the day, it's them who tell you or give you the funds, because as when we met you mentioned this, and I would like to say it, like, there is no corporate funding for a badminton. Probably starting creeping in now, maybe because we've had this much of success. They're like, okay, bhav de dete inko bhi, but it's always the government and the association that gets together and says, we need to fund them. We need to give all our facilities, but we'll be at the back. Let them enjoy the limelight. So what do you have to say about that? Badminton Association of India has done a really incredible job. Yes, of course, with the guidelines of the players, but still, they are there.
I think, as you rightly say, I think a system needs to be developed to produce top-notch players in any sport. And over the years, we've been talking about why China has so much success and how they have this talent hotbed where they keep churning out players like a factory.
Yeah.
The point there is that they found the right system that suits them.
Yeah.
And I think over the last decade or so, India has slowly found its system as well.
Yeah.
And in any system, I think there's a role responsibility for each character. There's only so much that a one-man band can do. We really need a sort of an orchestra. We need different people playing different tunes to actually make the music we want to hear. And in that orchestra, I think the Badminton Association of India, headed by Dr. Akhilesh Das Gupta, I think they've done a fabulous job, because if you see the thought process that has gone into what has happened in India over the last decade, it all started with the World Championships being brought to India in 2009.
Okay.
And since then, India has gone on to host the Commonwealth Games in 2010, Thomas and Uber Cup, Badminton Asia Championships, and in 2017 we'll be holding the World Masters as well.
Yeah.
India is one of the only countries that has all 4 categories of tournaments being held, by which I mean there are 4 categories of international tournaments: the Super Series, the Grand Prix, the International Challengers, and the International Series. And India hosts 1 tournament of each.
Yeah.
One of the very few countries who does. So I think BAI has done a great job bringing in these international tournaments. They've done a splendid job with the Premier Badminton League, being the richest badminton league in the world, where top class players came in. We had many former Olympic medalists playing in the last edition of the league that we saw, which is again very beneficial for our Indian players and our juniors, not only monetary wise but even exposure wise.
Right.
And throughout the year, I think BAI has planned national camps for the players so that the players can actually train together, so and improve together, basically. And at the national camps, because now badminton is a greatly sought after sport and the performances are there, because the funding, they do have other ancillary benefits like a physio, like a sports psychologist, like a nutritionist, all attached. So they do get treatment, and they do get help from a lot of these sources as well at the national camps. Again, shuttles provided by the government and by the Sports Authority of India. So the BI has managed to get the best out of the Sports Authority of India and the Government of India to actually help their players. Slowly, they are looking at setting up more training academies and using the existing infrastructure in a much better way. Now, because there's a lot of demand for the sport of badminton, there's a bit of a shortage in terms of the coaches. So BI has arranged for the Badminton World Federation's programs to come into India. They're training the coaches sort of program. Level 1, there's a shuttle time program that just concluded in Mumbai. The Mumbai leg just concluded a few weeks ago, to actually bring and introduce the sport in a very fun and safe way to school PE teachers. So they're looking at a grassroots development as well. So there's national camps for the elite, then there's coach the coaches, the BWF level 1 coaches, which will now slowly progress to 2 and 3. And there's a grassroots school program going on all at the same time. So it's very well thought out in that sense. And of course, a huge shout out to the Sports Authority of India and the Government of India, because the reach that they have and the resources that they have, I don't think any private academy or a corporate can provide on its own. So it's a huge expense, and sometimes these guys don't get enough credit. So we need to give them the credit. I think it's really a part of a team, and the teamwork is what is paying very rich dividends. Always put a disclaimer. As you said, things can get better. Sometimes there are certain factions that are not happy with what is going on, and that needs to improve.
Yeah.
But so far, there are things going positively, and I think we can just look at the positive so far and just continue moving forward.
Well, yeah, it is important, right? I mean, yes, when we point finger at someone, we always forget that the other four fingers are on us. And it's easy for anyone, a layman, to sit back and say, what are you doing? Like, are we doing something? It starts always from us. But rather than questioning, if you, as you rightly said, if there was no backing from any of them, Gopi Chand wouldn't have been there, or Prakash Padukone couldn't have just gone by on his own to build an academy and, to grant all of them, even though the passion is what drives them. But you just need a bit more thing to push your passion to make it work, right?
And I think it's very rare. We talk about corporate support, but it's very rare that a corporate will actually come and support you when the performance is not yet there. A corporate generally will not support a potential, but it'll support a star.
Yeah.
And the potentials are supported by the government. So I think we need to give them that credit. And of course, we would love to invite more corporates to participate in this big endeavor, because they also play a large role.
Yeah.
And it will actually help a lot if more money comes in. We have money in badminton. It's much better than a lot of the other sports.
Right.
But it can get better because cricket is where we want to reach, right? That's where we all want to get to.
Yeah. Well, on that note, folks, let's dive into a short break because it's Aparna Popat here and we need to have a long conversation, right? We can't let go of her very soon. So on the other side of the conversation, we'll continue the fun bit because this was a bit of seriousness. So we'll come back with some direct questions addressed to Aparna.
Hey friend, so if you're listening to a podcast right now, you're probably some kind of a nerd. A nerd at heart, at least. So maybe, just maybe, you might like another podcast about nerds, by nerds, and for nerds.
It's called Geek Fruit, a community to unite estranged geeks from across India and later on the world. We talk about television, movies, science fiction, adventure, fantasy, etc. Anything nerdy, it's all here on Geek Fruit.
We've got episodes coming out every Tuesday and Thursday, and you can check us out on iTunes, Audioboom, Stitcher, or any of your favorite podcast apps. Like my favorite podcast app, the IVM podcast app. Give me my money, IVM.
Good plug.
Happy listening, you nerds.
And we are back again on the show, continuing our conversation with Aparna Popat, and let's move on to the fun round of the session. A direct question. Do we see Saina Nehwal? Though I as a fan would want to see her get back because I love the competition spirit that she has in her, the fighting spirit rather, that she said, hey, you know what, I'm not looking at the results right now, but I want to keep fighting. I want to keep pushing myself, go ahead and do that. What do you see? Do you see a comeback?
Well, when Saina says, I don't want to look at the results, I'll keep fighting, which means she knows the results are going to come anyway. Yeah, so she's been a great champion. There's no question. She knows how to win. For me, and I've always said this, that she just needs to remain physically fit. And unfortunately, that knee injury and that huge setback at Rio. But we've seen her playing since then, and she's slowly but surely getting her form back. So I really feel that she's very dependable. I think amongst all the Indians today, I think Saina still, according to me, is very dependable.
Yeah.
You can
the flag bearer.
The flag bearer. I mean, just look at the consistency she's had in the last 10 years. To be in the top 10 and majority of the time in the top 5 over a period of 10 years, she's not only been one of the most consistent performers in India, but across the world in women's singles. So that speaks a lot for her caliber and really her hard work that has gone into it. So I would love to see her back on court. But at the same time, I just pray that she remains healthy. And the fun and the enjoyment of the sport remains within her, because that is very, very important.
Well, now that brings us to probably another contender who is, probably slowly crept into that phase, but she still has a long way to go. Yes, she's got the Olympics silver medal. She's got bronze at the World Championship. But still, there is still something, probably not lacking, but still forward for her to look forward to get more laurels. Not for herself, for the country or anything, but just for sport, for that matter of, contention and competition. Just for fans to sit back and say, it's not just one man anymore or one woman anymore. There are more people creeping in. We're talking about Sindhu here. Do you think that 2016 was the best for her, right? It was like a scripted movie just played for Sindhu, and she was the lead actress in that movie. So do you think all of that pressure, and now she's wanted in a good way for everything, for all the events, and there's too much of pressure. There's always limelight on her, whether it's even a gold Grand Prix that she's playing right now. Do you see the consistency that's going to be in her? Is she going to be as lethal as she's been right now?
So I think Sindhu's career started a bit upside down because she came in, burst on the scene with a World Championship bronze. Then everybody said, okay, maybe one. Then next year again she followed it up in 2014 with another World Championship bronze. And then came out with this huge, spectacular performance at the Rio Olympics with the silver. Since then, there were two things that I, as well as a lot of others, were saying that now she needs to get a Super Series title and she needs to break into the top 5 in the world. It's high time. Done that. China Open, she got her Super Series title. She's broken into the top 5. So she's on the right track, definitely. But again, I think the reputation will come when consistency comes in. I think she still needs to get to tournaments and at least as a minimum start reaching semi-finals of any tournament that she participates in, even if she doesn't manage to win. And I'm sure if she reaches semi, she will break through and win a couple. But I think that should be now her benchmark to get to the semi-finals. It's not easy, considering it's a 21-point scoring format, which might change in the future, which will become a little more challenging if it's 11 points. But I think that is what she needs to look at. And the ranking, of course, will go up and down depending on the performance. But if you're constantly reaching semi-finals, she should maintain a ranking now in the top 5. So for her, consistency would be key, and also look at more big wins. World Championships, All England, and of course the big wins for India in terms of the Uber Cup or the Sudirman Cup is something that India will depend on her.
Right, well, the All England is slowly soon approaching, and probably we'll see all of these top shuttlers, fight it out there. Coming back to our young crop, how can we not talk about that, right? The ones that we always generate many. There are so many of them in men's singles, right? We are never running out of names. There's slightly, as you mentioned Kashyap, and then we switched on to Srikanth, and then we had Prannoy coming up, and then we had Ajay. We are really not out of numbers or names in men's singles. We can still go on. We have Samir Verma, who's just slowly getting to the top 20. He's 23 right now, from I think 60s. He's really fought hard. Yes, the light that he got probably was to beat the world number 3 back then, Jorgensen. Crazy stuff, And we have Lakshya Sen, who's doing well, 15-year-old kid. We have not only in singles, but in doubles as well. We saw Satwik performing in the Premier Badminton League, and wow, he beat Lee Yong Dae. It's a fairy tale in the men's singles, right, at the moment.
I think, when during the qualification period for Rio, we had 4 men's singles players gunning for 2 slots. There was a time, as I was mentioning earlier, where we were dying to get 1 player to qualify for the Olympics. Now, there are these 4 guys who are equally good, trying to get to those 2 slots. Unfortunately, of course, Kashyap lost out due to an injury, but Srikanth was there, and I think Ajay and Prannoy narrowly missed out. Though they had big wins, Ajay the Korean Open finals and Prannoy through the Swiss Open title. But we also have the bench strength, as you spoke about. It was Cyril Verma who reached the world number 1 position in the juniors. And now it's Lakshya Sen who's got to world number 1 and recently reached the finals of the senior nationals. So a lot of promise there, as well as rightly in the doubles. And we saw a lot of this talent on display at the Premier Badminton League. There was Aditya Joshi was playing very well. Samir, everybody was looking out for him after that Hong Kong Open performance. There was Chirag Sen, who's actually Satwik's partner.
Chirag Shetty.
Chirag Shetty. And Satwik, of course, what a performance. What a match he played against Lee Yong Dae. And I can't forget the last couple of points that he actually took control of the match. So, a lot of talent available, but it really then now boils down to the player. So you always say how badly you want it. And let's just see. I think, as I said, India is going to now we start hunting in packs. And that is exactly what we've set stage for.
Now, we are almost ending the show, but I think it would be unfair if we don't touch about, because we've been talking about them off the record, Siki and Pranav's emergence. We mentioned Jwala and Diju get to world number 6. They are not far away from reaching that number because right now they're 13. And for a pair that is just a year old, they formed together in 2015 December. And by 2016 December they were 14, and now they're at present 13. What was that rise? It has been impeccable, right? Their journey, Pranav and Siki.
It's been spectacular, really amazing to get to world number 13 so quickly. Again, in an event that India is not traditionally very strong. So I think they've done very, very well. They've got the combination right. Luckily, India, again, the other good thing that India has done, and thanks to the BI, again, has got a lot of foreign coaches in. So Tan Kim Ho, who's a very renowned international doubles coach, is working with our players, and he's going to be here, I think, till 2020. Mulyo Handoyo, who's Tawfiq's
champion coach for champion player, right?
And he will help Kopi out in the singles. So again, our players have only to benefit right now. And again, coming back to the doubles, everybody's been talking doubles is sidelined. It doesn't get the attention it should. But we've had some super performances in doubles as well. And over the years, if you look at the representation in the top 50 or the top 100, I think we have close to, say, about 17 doubles pairs across 3 categories in the top 100. And about 5 in the top 50. So I think it's not bad, but they're hovering around the 20-25. Of course, save Siki and Pranav, who've gotten to 13 now. We need to start getting them under 10 in the world ranking as well. So I hope Siki and Pranav, take on the challenge and they show the rest of the pairs as to how it's done. And I think that will give us a very good all-round performance to the Indian team.
Great. I think to sum it up all, the conversation, if I were to take takeaways, consistency is key. Pushing yourself, and probably if you're a junior, ask yourself how badly you want it. So probably Lakshya or someone like Chirag Sen or Satwik should go back and ask them, how badly do I want this? Do I really want to continue? Can I handle the pressure? Because there will be. I think the other point is something that are not in our control, but probably we can. That's staying injury free, healthy. Some players have really had bad relation with injuries, but they're still fighting, and they are fighters for a reason. Finally, I would say all of this put together in a positive package of that comes within individuals who work behind the scenes, associations, organizations who work behind the scenes, who we tend to leave out on or not appreciate. But here we are, I think probably we've taken all of them into consideration and saying, hey, badminton is always on the rise. And from here on, I don't think there's a looking back from here, right?
Certainly not.
Any parting thoughts for all the fans who are out there probably listening to us? Talk about all the positives here.
I think just support the sport of badminton and come out and watch. It's a great sport. I promise it looks better even live. It looks much better live. Come into the stadiums, watch these champion players play because it means a lot to them. I mean, the more support you give them, I think the better they will perform and they will rise to the occasion. So, looking forward to seeing many of you all part of this incredible journey of Indian badminton.
Great. Well, that's a great way to sign off. And, well, folks out there, as I said, as I started the show, this is our first TFG Badminton podcast. And what a way to kickstart. And I enjoyed the show. I hope you did, Aparna. And I hope the listeners out there had a ball. This is just the beginning of this podcast. And I am pretty sure Aparna is not done yet. We will definitely have her back for some more discussions. But what you have to look forward to is many more such stars like her are the upcoming ones. We promise you we'll get everyone, almost everyone, probably we'll try our best to get them on the show, talking to you, everything that you need to know about Indian badminton, right? Now, if you're listening to our show on YouTube, hit the like, share, subscribe to our channel, hit the bell icon so you get updates of our new episode. You can also listen to our podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Audio Boom, and various other podcasting apps. Aparna, don't look at me like that. This is my tradition that I follow toward the end. And we're on Twitter. We do follow TFG Badminton. Aparna is on Twitter. I think that's the only platform that she's on. At Aparna Popat, that's your Twitter handle. Be active, no? As in, I think you should be. If you say all of this and you tweet one bit, the other,
With your help, of course.
I will be there, don't worry. I'm on Twitter as Matthew94. Have a great day, folks. Hope you enjoyed the show. You know what to do. We will get back to you up with amazing badminton podcasts. Have a great day. Cheers.
Hey man, just help me out, man. I need some podcast, man. I haven't had a fix in a week. Just need some.
Don't you worry about it. I got podcast galore for you, man. Just go to ivmpodcast.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Thanks, man. I'm gonna check it out.